Unmuted. I'm so glad you pressed play today. So, today we are talking about pivots. Not the cute little pivots that they love to post online, right? Not the I quit my job on Friday and made six figures by Monday story. I'm talking about the real pivots. The one that comes when you're tired, stretched, and you're low key over it. The one that shows up when your commute is heavy, your body is drained, and your spirit is whispering, there has to be more than this. This episode is called Pivot with Purpose because there has to be a purpose to your pivot. If you've been feeling pulled to change something in your life, but you're not sure if it's God or burnout or your emotions talking, this episode is for you. I am talking to the woman who's sitting in the middle. You're not where you want to be, but you're not sure where to go next. You're tired of carrying everything. You're tired of feeling small. You're tired of pretending your current life fits when deep down it's already too tight. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it means to pivot with purpose and not just move out of panic. So let me start with my own life because I never want to sit here and talk like I have it all figured out because y'all, that is just not the case. So right now I'm in the middle of my own possible pivot. So I work a full-time job. It's long days, long commute, a lot of responsibility, right? And an opportunity came up for a role closer to home. Now, on paper, it might look smaller. It might look like a step down to other people. The title is different, the level is different. But in my real life, in my body, in my mind, it would mean less travel, less commuting time, less stress, okay? And I see more breathing room for my life, for my health, for my relationships, and for my purpose, honestly. So I've been sitting in that tension. Do I stay where I am because it sounds better when I say it out loud, because it looks bigger on paper, right? Because that's what people think success is supposed to look like. Or do I pivot into something that might look smaller on the outside, but actually supports the woman I'm becoming on the inside? And that is not the first pivot moment that I have had, y'all. Let's be clear, okay? I have pivoted in my online world too, okay? I shifted from talking about making money online to talking about mindset, transformation, and faith. And I shifted from trying to be everything to everybody to being honest about who I'm called to serve. Now, some of those pivots were beautiful. They were led, they were on purpose. I could feel God in them, okay? And some of those pivots were panic. Let me just be completely real and honest. There were times I wanted to burn the whole thing down, change my niche, change my name, change my offer, right? And not because God told me to, but because I was tired, discouraged, and comparing myself to everybody else. And every time I've pivoted from panic, I ended up more confused, not more free. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just keeping it 1,000% real. So, if you are in that space right now where you're like, I want to quit this job, I want to move, I want to switch my whole brand, I want to disappear and start over, I see you. Okay, I see you because I have been there. And honestly, I'm sitting in some of that right now. And that is why I wanted to have this conversation today, because we do not just need permission to pivot, we need wisdom for how to pivot and how to know why we are even doing it. So let's talk about the difference between panic pivot and a purpose pivot. Because on the outside, they can look the same, like new job, new city, new brand, new relationship, new business idea. You might be thinking about some of those right now while you're listening, right? But on the inside, the energy is completely different. A panic pivot is when you move just to get away from pain. You are burned out, you feel unseen, you feel unappreciated, you are exhausted by your schedule, your boss, your clients, your family, just just all of it, right? And if you're not in your head right now, I am talking to you. And instead of pausing, instead of getting support, instead of asking God for clarity, you make a big change from a place of, I cannot take this anymore. So you quit everything. You throw away the plan. You start a whole new thing. And in the moment, it feels brave. It feels dramatic. It feels like a movie scene, right? But nobody talks about what happens 3 months later because the root is still unhealed. You end up in the same patterns in a new place. So let's talk about signs you might be making a panic pivot, what that might look like, right? So you made the decision in the middle of a breakdown. Your plan is basically anything but this, right? You're more excited about leaving than you are about where you're going. You do not have a real plan. You just have a post and some feelings. Now, if that list hit a little too close, do not shame yourself. I just want you to notice it. Now, let's talk about a purpose pivot. A purpose pivot can still be scary. You might feel nervous, you might feel unsure, but underneath the fear, there's peace, there's clarity, there's alignment. You're not just running from what you do not want, you're moving towards what you know you're called to. See, that's the difference I want you to really hear, okay? So, here's signs of a purpose pivot. I want you to pay attention to these. So, you've sat with God about it, not just your group chat, right? I know how we are about those group chats, but did you go to God about this, right? You can describe what you're moving towards, not just from what you're escaping from. The decision lines up with your values, your health, your faith, your relationships, right? And you're willing to do the quiet, unglamorous steps, even if nobody claps for you online. If you felt even a little peace in your body hearing that list, I want you to pay attention to that. A panic pivot is loud, it's fast, it is dramatic. But now a purpose pivot is usually quiet, right? It is steady, it is led, it is not something that's forced. And I want you to hear this part too. Just because you are tired does not automatically mean you're supposed to walk away. And just because you are good at something does not mean you are supposed to stay. Let me say that again because I need this to resonate with you. Just because you are tired does not automatically mean you're supposed to walk away. And just because you are good at something does not mean you are supposed to stay. This is why you need clarity about the purpose behind your pivot. So, how do you know if it is actually time to pivot? How do you know if this is a move you're supposed to make or if you just need rest, support, and like new boundaries where you are? I want to give you a few questions that you can sit with. You can journal these, you can pray through them, you can pause this episode and come back to them. There's no right or wrong way. Whichever way works for you is fine. But I do not want you making major life decisions without being honest with yourself here. Question one: am I moving towards something or just away from something? I want you to really sit with that. If the only thing you can describe is what you hate right now, you cannot clearly say what you want your life to look like on the other side, you might be trying to pivot from pain, not purpose. What does toward look like for you? Toward more peace, toward more time with your family, toward a happier, healthier body, toward a life where your job does not swallow your voice in your dreams? If you cannot picture that yet, it is okay. That just means the first pivot might be internal, not external. If you do not know what toward is yet, you may not be ready to pivot. You might be ready to rest. You might be ready to reset your mind first. Now, question 2: does this pivot honor my health, my faith, and my relationships? We love to talk about income and titles. We love to talk about what looks good on paper. But I want you to ask, if I make this move, what happens to my body? What happens to my nervous system? What happens to my walk with God? What happens to the people who love me? Will this new season support my healing and my growth, or does it just look good online? Be honest here, even if you don't like the answer at first. For me, when I look at shifts in my own life, one of the biggest signs I pay attention to is peace. Not comfort, not easy, but peace. Will this move give me breathing room to actually live? Or will it just give me new stress and a new package? Question 3: did I decide this in stillness or in a spiral? Did you decide to walk away in the middle of a meltdown, in the middle of an argument, in the middle of a week where you had not slept, eaten well, or talked to God? Or did you decide it after you calmed down, after you got some rest, after you prayed, after you talked it out with wise, safe people? The decision you make in stillness usually sounds different from the decision you make in a spiral. And listen, you know exactly what I mean by that because you have lived both, okay? I want you to be honest with yourself. Not shameful, just honest. Because honesty is what gives you real power over your next move. All right, now I want to walk you through a simple framework for pivoting with purpose. 4 words: pause, pray, process, plan. You can write this down, you can come back to it later, but if you're in a season of transition, this can help you slow down and move from clarity, not chaos. First, pause. Before you make the announcement, before you send the text, before you quit, move, or switch everything, pause. Your nervous system needs it. Your body needs it. Your mind needs it. You cannot hear clearly when you're in constant survival mode. And a lot of us have been in survival for so long that chaos feels normal. So sometimes the first step is not a big decision. It's a nap, okay? It's drinking some water. It's saying no to one more thing that's on your plate. It's logging off for the evening instead of scrolling yourself into more confusion. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about. For me, pausing looked like admitting I'm overwhelmed, I'm foggy, I'm procrastinating, and I'm trying to be everything for everyone at work and at home, and my brain is tired. And instead of forcing myself to muscle through, I had to break it into pieces: one slide, one task, one brick. That pause created room for perspective. Second, pray. After you pause, invite God into it. Not just God, get me out of here, but real questions. What are you trying to grow in me in this season? What are you showing me about myself? Is this a door you are opening, or is this me trying to escape discomfort? Is this pivot about purpose, or am I chasing validation and relief? You do not have to sound deep. You do not have to use fancy language. God can handle, I'm tired, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. Show me what is you and what is just my frustration talking. He can handle that. Sometimes God will give you peace to stay and make changes. Sometimes He will nudge you to prepare to leave. And then sometimes He'll say, no, not yet. Get stable here first. Prayer is less about getting a quick yes or no and more about letting your spirit line up with what He really already sees for you. Third, process. This is where the mindset work comes in, okay? You have to process your motives and your beliefs. Ask yourself, why do I want this pivot? Do I want it because I feel called or because I feel behind? Do I want it because it lines up with the woman I'm becoming or because I want to prove something to people who never believed in me? Am I trying to escape a hard season or am I truly entering a new one? What story am I telling myself about staying? If I stay, I'm weak. If I stay, I failed, right? What story am I telling myself about leaving? If I leave, everyone would think I could not handle it. If I leave, I'm starting all over again. Some of you listening have talked yourself out of moves God was in because of those same stories. And then some of you have talked yourself into moves God never co signed for the same reason. This is where journaling, therapy, coaching, and tools like the unmuted method come in. Because if your mind is still repeating, I'm always behind, I'm not smart enough, I never finish anything, you will doubt yourself at every crossword. You will either stay where you are when it no longer fits, or you'll jump into something you're not ready for because you don't trust your own voice. Processing lets you separate truth from the lies you picked up along the way, okay? So, fourth, plan. If after pausing, praying, and processing, you still feel peace about the pivot, now it's time to plan. Not a dramatic post, not a mystery drop, a plan. What are the actual steps? What do you need to save? What do you need to research? What conversation do you need to have? What timelines are realistic? How will this affect your day to day life, your sleep, your money, your relationships, your time with God? A purpose pivot comes with a plan. It might still be scary. You might still have to walk by faith. You might not have every detail, but it's not reckless. You're not just jumping off a cliff hoping something catches you. You're walking with God into the next step you have thought through and prepared for. That's what I'm doing with my own life right now. I'm not rushing. I'm not announcing everything to the world. I am pausing, I'm praying, I'm processing my motives, and I'm planning so that whatever move I make lines up with who I am today and who I'm becoming tomorrow. And I want the same for you. I want you to be able to look back at your pivot and say, I did that with God. I did that with wisdom. I did that with purpose. Not, I did that because I was tired and I wanted a quick exit. If you're listening to this right now and you feel that pull to pivot, but you do not fully trust yourself yet, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not lazy. You're not all over the place. You're a woman who has carried a lot for a very long time. Of course, your mind is loud. Of course, you're second guessing every move. Of course, you're scared to make the wrong decision. That does not mean you're broken. It just means you need support for your mind and your spirit, not just a new plan on paper. Because You cannot pivot with purpose if you still see yourself through old muted stories. If you still see yourself as the girl who never follows through, the one who always puts everyone else first, the one who is too much at work but not enough everywhere else. You will keep shrinking your decisions to fit a version of you that you have actually outgrown. That is part of why I created the unmuted method. The unmuted method is a mindset experience that walks you through the beliefs and patterns that keep you playing small. So you can start making decisions from clarity instead of chaos. It's not about fixing you, you're not broken. It's about helping you see yourself clearly through God's eyes and through truth. So when you stay on purpose. And when you go on purpose. So if you're in a season where you feel pivot is coming, but you know you need to get your mind right first, the unmuted method is definitely for you. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes so you can walk through that work with me in your own time. But I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, I want you to take a few minutes after this ends and really sit with those questions we talked about. Ask yourself, am I running from something or am I moving towards something? Is this panic or is this purpose? And remember, you deserve a life that supports your peace, your purpose, and your growth. You're allowed to pivot with wisdom. You're allowed to choose what is healthy for you. You are allowed to follow God even when it does not impress other people. So, again, thank you for listening to April Unmuted. And remember, be authentic in everything you do because authenticity is the new bag.